I think it's important, Mike, that the defense crews, the engine companies and stuff that are out there, not just about triaging individual structures, but triaging neighborhoods. If it's on your orientation to the area, triaging neighborhoods, whether this is a defensible neighborhood or a non-defensible neighborhood, depending on how much continuous canopy is around, the fuel load, the type of structures, whether they're all stucco and asphalt or like this. But I think depending on how much time you have, your triaging might just be on the neighborhood. Can we go into that neighborhood if we start getting spotting? Is it defendable? Yeah, okay, then we can do that, right, with the safety zones and all that stuff. But it might be down and dirty just to the point where you're just doing neighborhoods.
Yeah, yeah. So for the people listening at home, from Lou was not, having that mindset and coming up and taking a look that am I doing a triage on an individual structure, or am I doing triage on the entire neighborhood or community? What are my access points? What's my in and out? What are the structures made out of? Are they stucco and asphalt, or are they wood and cedar and no priority zone 1 cleaning? So being able to actually triage that entire community or neighborhood so that you have more time to react when the fire gets there. Sorry, Jack.
A quick question then is, after a triage, is there a rule of thumb that you guys use as to whether you're going to protect it or not? Like if a fire's coming down, triage, I know it's a time frame, but what is that time frame? How long do you give yourselves?
It's going to depend. So the question is, sorry, one more time, Jack. Just So
you've triaged that house, that one for an example.
Sure.
And the fire is coming towards it.
Yeah.
What is the rule of thumb, or is there a rule of thumb on the time frame between the triage and the fire coming down that you decide to do it, or that it's worth saving? Like, you know what I'm getting at? You've triaged it.
Yep.
The fire's going to be there in 3 hours. Do we protect it? Or if the fire's only going to be in there an hour, do you drive by and keep going? I mean, that's just curious.
Yeah, and so the hard and fast on that is it depends. And based on the fact that, number one, we want to get the life safety threat out of there. They may not want to leave. Again, where are we going to document that as an engine boss? That's going to go into our 214, right? We're going to get their name and whatnot, and that they chose to make a stand and they're going to stay. When we evaluate how many of these exist, right? So let's say we've got 3 of these and it's 3 hours away, and if we just quickly throw this off the deck, make a jackpot in somewhere that's safe, and we can pound some poly around that lower deck to keep the ember cast out, we can do that quickly and move on. That might not be exactly what saves this structure, but it might slow down the propagation of that ember cast until we can get back in, right? So I think a lot of times we think our tactics are a one-stop shop. We're going to do a rescue drive-by. That's true, we are, but then we're going to come back and we're either going to do firefront following, or we're going to do a tactical patrol to make sure that if there are any embers that have, kind of eddied around your typical spots for small litter and leaf gathering, is that we're continually going back and monitoring that until we know the threat is gone. So ultimately is we want to get the life safety out, do the fastest work we can. We know, or let's just say we know that there's no safety zone here. We're going to prep and leave, right? So we go up, we do a rescue drive-by or a check and go, and then we go, hey, actually, we got 3 hours. Okay, you know what? We want to be out of here when it's at 1 hour. So quick, there's no safety zone here, but let's do some quick work, and we're going to prep it, and we're going to leave. Yeah.
I think, too, Jack, to that point, is available resources on the site, too. Obviously, if it's in the first operational period, or if you're in an IA type situation, your ability to do full triage and action each property is going to be very limited. So you take the best probability of survivability from the fire front if it's right on the doorstep of the community. But if we know that we're going to have incoming tactical resources from neighboring communities, structure protection units, and we have days in advance, it changes the total structure defense planning process entirely. So it really depends on what operational period we're into.
Good. Okay. So we'll go through a few more of these. What triage category is this? And we'll just, for the sake of looking at the slide, we'll say that that's a rock. I believe it's rock, built out of rock, and then it's a tin roof on top of that. Yeah, that's defensible, right? So, and again, if you have a rank 4 that's coming through this crown, or a rank 5 coming through this crown, like, are we going to be staying at this place? Most likely not. We'll do a rescue drive-by. We'll go up. We'll do whatever we can to prep this in the time frame it allows us to get out, and then we'll return afterwards. So once that, rank 5. But if it's just coming up this slope at a rank 1, rank 2, where we can actually go offensive on the fire front and put the flame edge out, then yeah, we can get to work in here because we feel like we're pointing in the right direction out to our escape zone, our escape route to our safety zone, and we're confident that we can stay in this area to do that work. So a lot of time it's fire behavior dependent. This one, prep and go if we got time, rescue drive-by for sure. We've got big pile of wood. There's a tarp partially on top of that. So as one of the crew members is knocking on the door, you can have your other crew member throwing this tarp over the rest of the wood to try to stop that ember cast into there and reduce receptive fuels. And then if you can, the big fiberglass boat that's here, if you can get that away from the structure onto a place that even if it does light, it's not going to impact the structure or the neighboring fuels.
Kind of one of those like 50-50 size, the massive cedar bushes there. Does moving that boat really make that much of a difference?
Yeah. Or do we need to remove that whole fuel source, which is the bags of fuel that are standing there? And that's a big thing. Like, you go out to someone's house and you go, oh man, the fire's going to be here in an hour, quick. Let's cut all the cedars down around their house. And then the fire, because you get, a big fixed wing come in and steer the fire around the community, and they come home and all the cedars are gone. There's going to be some recovery questions on that. And right in the 214, if you're Task Force 3, that Task Force 2 came in and cut all those cedars down. When we speak about 214s, that's typically at the end of your shift where you walk around and you sit with your strike team and your task force leader and you write on that single piece of paper. It's very hard to carry around that single piece of paper for you throughout the day as you're actioning the events. So if you throw a little book, Right in the Rain or whatever you can grab your hands on, that you just kind of keep in your gear, when something of significance happens, mark down the time, mark down the address, mark down what you did, because it's eventually going to be taken from you and put into the legal system and then go for recovery. So make sure anything that you do, you're tracking, and it's going to be something that your strike team leader, your task force leader is going to be sitting down with each engine company boss at the end of the day and asking them to fill out along with their DTR. So you get one, if you give me the 214, then you get to fill out your DTR, and your DTR is what gets you money for your community back. So it's a small give and take.
Just further to what Chad said too, like about kind of doing the minimal amount of damage to defend a house. Like, I've seen it, a whole fence, like cedar fences. Often the houses have cedar fences, like the panel fences. Instead of taking down the whole fence with a chainsaw, maybe just remove the panel that wicks to the house. Like, just thinking about things like that, just keeping that damage minimal in case it doesn't go that way.
Yeah. And this one specifically, you can see has a tin roof on it, right? So the chances of it, there's probably a pretty good chance that's going to survive if we can do a little bit of quick prep around it. And again, it's not typically the rank 5, rank 6 conflagration that comes through that burns the houses down. It's the ember cast afterwards or ahead of it, or the stuff that goes unnoticed that ends up taking the structure down afterwards. So if we can do this quick work, it allows us that opportunity to be successful when we come back in afterwards. Okay, what triage category is this one? Again, it all depends, but when I look at it, it's flat, it's grassy, we have willow trees, TJ's yard maintenance service here, so there's a fuel tank. So there's a fair bit of stuff that we can quickly prep before we have to leave. But you know what? Chances are down on the flats here where it's wet, there's probably going to be a safety zone nearby here. This big shed could be a jackpot of fuel, being an old barn, probably an old cedar or pine roof, something along those lines. But it's something that you would take a look at and then determine. You might cut a guard around it because it's flat, and any of the embers that come into that, that blonde tall grass are going to burn up to that scratch down to the mineral and go out. And you can kind of go, okay, for the time being, we think that structure is going to survive a frontal impact from the fire. It's pancake flat. So the other thing is finding resource that you can use to help yourself do the job. I got a great video of a fire we had in West Kelowna where I rolled up from as the div, and my strike team task force leader is like walking, mowing the lawn because they found a lawnmower, and he's mowing the lawn all around the structure. And I'm like, hey, awesome. Let's try to mitigate it as best we can. So you might have blowers and weed eaters and all those things that you close by that you might be able to use, along with ladders, or if you feel like you need to board up the windows on the side of the house that's going to face that initial fire front, and you can find them there, bang them up on top of the windows. That's a pretty good preparation in advance of the fire. Ooh, oof. Oof. I don't know what your problem is. All day long I'm staying in here. One big safety zone, yeah. So I think we can all identify we don't have one big safety zone here, depending on, again, our fire behavior. So if it's a rank 1 or 2, it's creeping along underneath, and we feel confident it's not going to climb ladder fuels because this has all been pre-treated and spaced, and we feel comfortable to put that litter fire out, great. But if we have anything bigger than a rank 3 anywhere near this, that's a rescue drive-by all day long. Go in there, try to do some quick prep if you can. If they have lawn furniture around their structure, jackpot it out into the grassy area. So if it does catch fire, it's not going to jump it over to the next one. So, but that's a little bit scary from my perspective, just based on the fuel surrounding it. Again, this one is going to take a lot of work, a lot of work. And this is someone's palace that they're going to come back to, hopefully, because we're able to. But when you look at ember transplant and all the receptive fuels everywhere around this place, if there's something that is a little bit better protected by the resident and you only have the time to work on one, work on the other one if it's better. This one is certainly, there's lots going on here. Doesn't mean that we're not going to go back there right afterwards. Right after the fire front goes through, we're going to go back there to see underneath that house, did those receptive fuels actually pick up an ember? And if they did, let's put it out, because we don't want to lose a house 3 days later, which we could have got right away. So it's continually going back to this until we know and we are confident that there isn't going to be ember cast that's going to start this on fire. Okay, back to a couple of case studies here. So we've got our apparatus down here. We're going to assume it's the 500-gallon apparatus we had previously. Houses 3 and 4 are threatened only by firebrands on the roof. That's these two. What are you guys going to do? Do you know the rank of this one? I'm going to guess it's a 3. We're going to